everybody. Happy Monday. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the PHNX Coyotes Podcast, brought to you by the one and only DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah Merrill here with Steve Peters, Craig Morgan as always, and we are very excited to welcome back, just the second time in 2023 already. You just couldn't stay away from the studio. It's Arizona Coyotes General Manager Bill Armstrong. Bill, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So we might need to get new chairs for Bill.
A little larger,
you get that perspective. We need to put him back about 3 feet so we all look like we're side to side.
I think I feel.
He doesn't need the footstool that we have for a few of our hosts.
Movie twins.
Yeah, you two.
Right over my head. No.
So twins, the twins reference. Leo lost it.
No, I'm gone.
Really? Nothing?
No, nothing. Sorry.
Schwarzenegger,
Never mind.
Yeah, no.
Classic.
I got nothing.
All right. So I got to ask before we get going on some of the details here. Have you had any sleep?
I did. I slept for about 2 days straight. It was great just to knowing everything was cleaned up and done, and we were playing games. You're handling some other stuff, but for the most part, there was 2 good days of sleep, and I saw our staff last night there, and they all looked well rested too. But we were pretty beat up. It's on. Like it's on when the deadline hits. So you're just working the phones constantly. And the good thing about living in beautiful Arizona is that you're on a different time zone than most GMs. So they feel that they can text you at 6 a.m.
Yes, can imagine.
Do you have like a soundproof room at home? You put on the eye mask, turn
the
on
noise
the sleep
machine.
app?
I do. I do. Yeah. I mean, living in Arizona is the beauty of it. You can walk out for a swim and, a hot tub and get refreshed and look out and, to the beautiful Arizona sky. So it certainly is a good place to have a day off.
I'm glad to hear that you're well rested, but your initial plan was not to be well rested the day after the trade deadline ended. What did you have planned? Because
I still have some form of that plan. I just had to adjust. I wanted to get over to Europe and see some of the top prospects. One day later, and as we say, and Petey said it earlier, it's on to the next, and that's what being a GM is all about. Is when you finish one thing, it's on to the next. And the prospect, there's a couple prospects that weren't sure they were going to play, and so I just said it's not worth the risk of flying all the way over there, and I needed a couple good days of sleep. So,
But you look at this trade deadline specifically, there were a lot of the big chip pieces that went early, and it was you wondered what was going to actually happen on trade deadline because so much happened earlier than normal.
Yeah.
So for you, what are those days like before the trade deadline? Like, I want to get inside your office. Are you picking up the phone and calling every GM? Are they calling you, or it's like? How does the process work?
I'm on the phone a lot, just because I'm trying to you're trying to feel out the vibe of what's happening. When I say that, I mean like what team is in and selling, what team are now.
So you're not
buyers.
even asking specifics. You're just calling, hey, how you doing?
I mean, just think about how the market changed. All of a sudden Detroit jumped in there.
Yeah.
And sold a few of their players to get some picks. All of a sudden Doug Armstrong's in there, in St. Louis, and he's moving some bodies, and then out of left field. There's, Nashville sitting right up against the playoffs, and they move their players. So the landscape was just constantly changing, and you have to have a good eye on that. It can work in your favor. Like, 1 year when the free agents came available, we knew, there was a huge interest in Darcy Kemper, and we knew we were just counting down the team. So this goaltender went that. Yep. Now there's 2 teams left, and there's our goaltender sitting there. So you have to keep a vibe to that every morning and really work the phones to understand the lay of the land.
Is it like the movies? Is it like you see the big whiteboard up there and you see all the players in front of you?
My staff makes fun of me all the time for the amount of whiteboards that we have around. But we have whiteboards everywhere. And actually, there's the new ones that slide, so I've got more that
my gosh.
But you need a lot of whiteboards.
We're gonna dive into some of the trades in more detail in a second. But now that it's been a couple days, you've had some time to digest. What do you feel like you accomplished at this trade deadline?
Well, I know the Canadian media will be a shocker for them because nobody really likes the Coyotes. But we made huge strides in our rebuild, and I know that nobody wrote about that because they missed the boat that we have picks all the way back to 2026. And from the moment that I've taken the chair as GM for the Yotes, we've talked about pretty much, refurbishing, rebuilding the stock of picks, and we've now done that. And so when the deadline had ended, I felt really, really good about the fact that we've got picks all the way back to 2026. If we did nothing and just drafted, we would make huge strides in this franchise with the fact that how many picks that we have. So we feel really good about where we are as an organization. We pulled off a big trade and acquired 2 prospects. We had eight picks we gained. It was a massive trade deadline for us. And I know that, the media, especially on the Canadian side, they didn't pick up on a lot of things that we did because there's really 2 trade deadlines. There's 2 different meanings. There's one that you're trying to acquire a player to win a championship, and those are the big sexy trades, the Ryan O'Reillys and the Barbashevs of the world, and the big pieces that come. And then on the other side of that, there are teams that are trying to rebuild for the future, and that's what we were doing. We were trying to gain assets. Like the plan all along was to take in players and flip them at the deadline to gain assets, and I felt we did a good job of that. And we finished out the rebuild as far as picks through this last deadline. And people don't write about that because it's not, I guess, sexy in that form. We didn't clinch the big player to now take that, final step to win a cup. But what we did was on the side of that is we gained picks to do that. So I felt it was a huge deadline for us and we accomplished what we wanted.
47 picks over the next 4 years, which if you were to execute all those, and we'll get to that later, would be an NHL record for over a 4-year span. So it's an insane amount of picks. Yeah. I want to ask you.
That doesn't even count the ones we just had, correct?
I think that's total over the next 4 years.
That's total?
So
okay.
Didn't quite get to the full deck of 52, but you don't want that anyway. Maybe Jankowski and Bladowski wanted, but yeah. But the other piece of this that a lot of people talked about was, they weren't taking money back.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let you talk on that because I know you have an inside perspective on all of that.
It's pretty interesting how that narrative gets pumped out to the media. Why would we take anybody's debt back? That doesn't make any sense. That's like you selling your car and someone goes, here's 10 grand, take my debt. Like, why would we do that? We're very smart with the dollars and we're on it. And I'll give you an example of how we use our dollars. Like, I think we're the only trade that kind of got the value for $176,000. We got a 3rd rounder. Like, we are on the money. We try to maximize our money. And so if we go out and take, there was a trade last year for a player roughly like Chychrun, where the return basically was a 1st and 2 seconds, but they took $3.1 million back to pull that deal off. From us not taking somebody's debt or bad player, however you want to think, now we have the opportunity to use that money to either to create assets or to buy a free agent that can be here and to help us take the next step instead of having a bad player in for 3.1 to 5.1. That gives us an opportunity to use that money wisely. So I'm really excited about the fact that we didn't take debt or bad players back.
LTIR, a lot of talk about that too. You want to address that?
Yeah, I mean, whether you use LTIR and you're the top team and you're pushing the limits and people say you're cheating at 96 million or you're doing it the other way, there's always a little bit of controversy because you're using what the CBA allows. It's just probably at times people are like, what are they doing? For us, it allows us a tremendous amount of flexibility, whether we're moving people, operating in the summer, whatever we are doing to create assets, it gives us flexibility. We had LTIR last year. It didn't stop us from taking a step where we became a better team this year. And again, it won't stop us from becoming a better team next year.
And you look at the assets that you have in the upcoming drafts, and Craig touched on it earlier. By no means you have to draft all those players. They give you an opportunity. Like last year, you were able to trade up and get another asset at a higher pick because you have so many assets. Could you tell us a little bit the strategy behind that?
Yeah, with our picks that we have, it gives you a lot of different options when you go into the draft. It gives you a lot of power. And, we'll talk about it, in depth, but we've used, to get McBain, we used a 2nd rounder. And that's part of the process is that if, I was reading a book one time and I was talking about the Houston Rockets did it, where they gathered enough picks and went and bought a player and helped them become a really good franchise at the time. And that was a good theory of we're going to put that theory to work because we've used one of our assets to buy McBain, and we're going to basically go out there into the field and do it again when we get to that point that we need to add a player that we haven't been able to draft. we're going to go out and do that. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. And the second part of that, when you go into the draft, you can basically say, listen, we got the pick 27. We want to get to 11. Here are the assets that we can do that. We can get up the ladder to where we call where the money makers are. 12 and up is how we classify it in our organization. It gives you a lot of flexibility as an organization. So I love the fact that you have that power when you get to the draft.
But that kind of talks about, last time you were here, you talked about having tiers of players that your scouts follow.
Yeah.
And you pick 27 as an example. If you say the player we really like is 25 to 30, falls in our range, we're okay. But if you say the guy we want's 12 to 14, we have to get that player. Yeah. That allows you that flexibility to maybe go out and get that player at 12 to 14 that you really, really like.
Yeah, and that's what we did last year with Geeky. We climbed up the ladder to, I believe, 11. We took a few other picks, 27 in a couple seconds to get up there. And it's not very often you see a team go from 27 to 11 to pick high in the draft like that, and we have that power to do that. So it's nice to have flexibility that you can go out there and be aggressive and create a higher end prospect from the draft.
Well, talking about the trades that happened, Jakob Chychrun, we have to talk about it. It's all we've been talking about for about a year, and we finally saw that trade go down. It was kind of the thing we were all waiting for. There was, I think, someone in the narratives, at least on Twitter and in our chat and in our Discord, was maybe that you didn't get the return that people thought was the ask. What can you tell us about what you had been asking and how things unfolded for you to get the return that you ended up getting?
This story could go on. We could literally have a whole show about this trade. It's a great question. First of all, if you look at some of the trades that have gone down in the past, and you take Dougie Hamilton, and he got traded, I believe, went from Boston to Calgary, and they got a first and 2 seconds. The first went at 15, and the 2 seconds were mid-range second-round picks. He had won the Calder the year before. He was 21 years old. That was their return. But the return was based on where the pick lied in the first round, because there's different tiers. There's 1 to 5, 6 to 12, 13 to 20, and 21 to 32. And there's a different ranges in the draft. And so, we could have looked unbelievable, and I could walk here and say, oh, we got 2 first rounders. We got pick 27 and we got pick 32, and we got a C-level prospect that we didn't like. And, everybody goes, oh my God, they got 2 first rounders. And listen, that was our ask. We wanted to make sure we walked through the door with 2 first rounders and try and get a prospect out of it. Well, the lay of the land at the time, changed for us, because there was teams that would give us that, but we would take anywhere from $11 million back to $3.1 million back. And that didn't make any sense for us to get our ask. And at the same time, when this Ottawa deal came upon us, we realized, okay, listen, there's a good chance we're going to pick between 11 to 15 with Ottawa. You can take 27 and 32 as picks, and you can get up to 14. That's the best you can do. So in the ranges, that's where it gets misconceived, that everybody says, oh, you get your first round pick. Where does the first round pick lie in what range? And so when we figured, okay, listen, and then the year before, we had a deal on the table from a team that was interested at Chick at the draft. And the biggest thing, the best we could get was the close. I think it was somewhere between, the pick was somewhere between 12 and 15. So we knew, what we were talking about was in range where that's what we could get last year at the time. And now we could not only get this range 11 to 15, but we could also get 2 seconds. I mean, we don't know where Washington's going to be next year. Who knows who they sign in the summer. And we also get Ottawa's pick, but it was a no-brainer for us because we have an ability to pick high in that range. Now, we also studied, what Ottawa's pretty good at home. They're pretty good home record, but they're below 500, and the majority of their games are against tough competition down the stretch. I think they've got the 3rd worst
strength of schedule.
Strength of schedule. So we took a chance on that to get a high pick in that range. Listen, if everything falls the Yotes way and the hockey gods strike for us, we could pick at 6.
I know Leah wants to ask you about that risk, but I want to dive into those tiers a little bit more. Like when you pick 1 to 5, I think everybody knows that's where
Oh yeah.
You might get franchise players. Yeah. What's the difference then between 6 and 12 and then that next range and then the last range? What are you talking on average? What usually comes out of those tiers?
Yeah, normally the top end tier. The top 5. Those are the the 1-2 defensemen that you're looking for. Yeah. You're looking for a top end center. A top line scoring guy that can get you 50 goals. That's what you're looking 1 to 5, and it just drops a little bit from 5 to 12. 6 to 12 in that range, but you're hoping to get the same player at 1 to 5. You're just hoping to be a better scouting staff.
Yeah.
Then when you get out of that range and you get into 13 to 20, you're hoping that, on your biggest day, you hit a Robert Thomas out of the park. There's a good NHL player there, but he's probably not going to be a star. You're hoping for, Jaden Schwartz would be a guy that you hope for in that range, that he's going to play a long time. He's going to be a point producer. He's going to be a little bit under a point a game, and you're going to be happy with him. And then when you're in the final range, probably 21 to 32, most times you get a third line guy. You get a 5th, 6th defenseman. That's what you mostly get out of that range. And if you hit it like out of the park, which, we became good, in St. Louis, just because you get into that range and you get into the 26th pick, and you study those ranges, I think we became good. But most times, most teams get a third line player out of that range. So I think knowing the ranges and know that we know, it's a deeper dive. And it's funny to me, there was criticism, and let's be honest, as a GM, you get a lot of criticism. That's you sign up for that. I get criticism in the house that I didn't take the garbage out. So I'm not opposed to having criticism, but what I do find interesting, nobody knows where that pick lies. And yet they were so quick to jump on us that we didn't get this big, sexy return. And we kind of knew that at the time, but our job is to do the right thing. And we feel the pick is going to lie somewhere between 11 to 15. That's going to give us a good chance at a really good player. And with all our back picks, we could also accelerate that if there was a team willing to take a chance or didn't like what was in front of them or felt they could get their player later, we might be moving up. There's a lot of different options that we have that I like.
I'd like to encourage people, because we looked at this after you mentioned this. Craig and I went and did a little deep dive over. We weren't as analytic as you guys are, but we went go picks 1 through 15 and then 16 through 32. And everybody encouraged over the last 10 years, go look at the first half of the first round and the second half of the first round. And the players are astoundingly different in those ranges. There are the odd picks that are great
the
players.
Thompsons.
Right,
and
they're there.
Yep, the Robert Thomases.
So then for you, as
Sean
you see this.
You mentioned him.
Yeah, Tage, I know.
Big
great.
Buffalo fan.
Kid. So there's conditions on this Jakob Chychrun pick.
Yep.
So now, are you, and I want to say rooting is not the right word, you're following the Ottawa Senators to say, okay, let's hope they fall as far as they can, or in the odd mythical world where they actually win the Eastern, get to the Eastern Conference Finals, that picks another first.
Yeah.
So we've encouraged our people to cheer for Ottawa to win it all or just lose miserably.
Yeah. And like I've always had the thought process. My mother taught me this is not good to root, bad for other people. So I just, try not to.
Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, and then that's the best way to do it. And my dad taught me that plan for the best and plan for the worst. And I think we've tried to do that with what we've done here. But proof's in the pudding, right? So where we're sitting 5 years from now, it'll. I feel good about it, and I feel good about what our staff has picked from before and what they've been able to dig out of the draft. Even in an early sample from the Yotes has been very good.
Yeah, well, there's the other thing though, and you mentioned it. You did some analysis on Ottawa's schedule down the stretch, but by trading them Chychrun, you did make them a little bit better. He's a great player. So how did you dissect that risk? Giving them a player that's going to make them better down the stretch, as we're not rooting for anyone to fail, but Coyotes fans are very interested in how the Senators finish.
The East is a different animal with the teams that they have in there. So even though we gave them Chyk, who's a really good player that's going to help them become a better team, we felt the East was so stacked, and with their schedule, it was so tough that it's going to be a hard one for them to overcome that to get into the playoffs. And if they do that, can they move up? And that's we're betting on our analytical team a little bit on that one, that the odds are against them, and we'll see where it lies.
I just one real quick follow up on Chychrun, and then we'll leave him. This looks from the outside, it's a player that's happy to be in that city. It's an organization that's happy with the return. You just said so. Is there a sense of relief even into the locker room with the players and the coaches who liked Chychrun? I'm not saying that they didn't, but it's that this saga is over.
Correct. Yeah. Well, there's, like I said, we could write a book on this. It was interesting, some of the stuff that, people, give, reporters ask you, and stuff gets kind of laid out. Like the guy said, you guys went through this whole saga for that. I'm like, hold on, let's back up. He was injured for 8 months. Yeah. And previous to that, he was minus 20 and he had a terrible season. It's hard to trade a player that had a terrible season and he's out, on 2 surgeries. And I'm like, you guys, you twist things around, but he had been injured for long periods of time. So our whole thing was, okay, how we're going to maximize this trade is we're going to get him back to health, which takes time. It took 8 months to get him back to playing time. And then we're going to put him in there. And, and we had great talks with him, and he was so professional about it. He was just unreal. And our coaching staff, we found good places to play him, and his game took off, and then that was when we had the chance to trade him. But let's be honest, when you haven't played 38% of your last 2 seasons, what's the first thing a GM says to you on the other line of that phone? Is like, he's injured a lot. Yeah. Price got to go down a little bit. So let's be honest about where it is. We were so excited for Chyc that he landed in Ottawa because we tried to work with the player. And he worked with us in saying that he wanted out. We wanted to get the most that we possibly could for him. And so to see him go to where he's, his family is from, and his sister lives there, and it's a great setup for him. And I think he was excited about it too. And hopefully we were able to land him where he wanted to go.
Absolutely. Well, lots more to get into, but before we do, just want to let everybody know that Petey is drinking coffee today. He's not drinking coffee. 4 Peaks beer.
A little respect today. I'm trying to bring my A game.
But you know.
Yes,
exactly.
A rare day when you're not day drinking.
If you know. But if you want to try out 4 Peaks beer, especially the weather is really getting nice this week. We're looking at 70 degrees.
Spring training's
here. Spring is in the air. No better time to drink some 4 Peaks beer. So you can grab your tickets to 4 Peaks amazing spring beer dinner at 4peaks.com/events. You must be 21 or older to enjoy responsibly. And we mentioned spring training. MLB is around the corner. I know you, PD, can't wait to bet on some baseball again.
Can't wait.
It's just a lot of fun. So we're going to hit that amazing time where 3 sports in action, tons of stuff you can bet on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. So sign up for the app, use the code PHNX. New customers can bet $5 and get 200 in free bets instantly. That's only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code PHNX. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And I saw Sean just put a message in our chat, but we will be choosing 5 chat questions at the end of the show to ask Bill Armstrong. So throw your questions in the chat. We will star them and look to them at the end. But before we do have a $5 super chat. This is from our friend Altex. Bill Altex is the biggest Zach Kassian fan.
He lives in St. Louis.
And was very excited about last night's goal.
Yes.
So Altex said, sorry for not being here last night. I listened to the pod. So happy that Kassian scored. He is indeed goated. So Altex, we missed you last night. Thank you for your super chat. We appreciate it. But anyway.
Yeah, we'll get back to this. I wanted to ask you about, I'm not going to ask you about all the trades, but with Ghost and Bjugstad in particular, what's the market about what you expected for those guys?
Yeah, I mean, there's some difficulties when you're moving people that have a certain amount of cap, because most championship teams that you're dealing with that want to add players have limited amount of space in their cap to work with. So it's like a jigsaw puzzle when you're trying to move people, because somebody might have a huge, interest in that player, but you can't fit them in on the cap, and then you're trying to cut money and it doesn't work because the amount of, I guess teams you'd have to rally around to cut the money for the amount what they want to cut the money, you can't get it done and it's not worth it. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that, it's really interesting. And, the phones are ringing. Like, once we moved Chyc, and then it was on to the next, and there, it was on, and there's a lot of, phone calls that are going through, and you're trying to sift through and figure out where you can move your players,
Yeah. They've all taken off, by the way.
Everybody's
scoring.
Yeah, it's great to see.
Yeah, it is.
I'm really happy for Ghost. Like, he was somebody that came in with such a good attitude, and he just every day was effort. Our players loved him. They fell in love with him. Our coaching staff loved him, and he was just a bundle of energy. And I really, truly think his game grew here. And on the GM side of it, it's awesome because we took him in for a second rounder. Someone paid us a second rounder, and then on the way out, we got a third rounder for him. So for us, to add in and help us with our rebuild and have a player like that on board for about a year and a bit, it was not only good on the GM side, but also as an organization, he helped us move forward.
But you look at it, and I want to bring up two players that Craig just mentioned, Gostisbehere and Bjugstad, two players that I can't believe I'm doing this, patting everybody on the back here. First of all, they're great signings for your team because they gave leadership and veteran. Yeah. But they were guys that were, Bjugstad, let's be honest, in Minnesota, he's their 13th forward. Yeah. Probably isn't going to play much. Yeah. Injury issues. And Gostisbehere, they paid you to take him. So you're looking at two players that I don't want to say their careers were definitely on a downswing. Yeah. But they come here under this coach, find something that they have in them, puts them in the right environment, the right ice time. They flourish, and now they're gone, and you see, oh my gosh, Bjugstad scores right away. Gostisbehere scores in his first two games. It's really a testament to, one, finding those assets. They're good people. Let's get them here. Yeah. And then a coach saying, okay, I can figure out where they fit. Yeah. It's unbelievable to watch what happened to those two players.
It is, and they've done a great job. Just I think Ghost found a new life, and so did Bjugstad. He told me in the summer when we signed him, he said, "I'm finally healthy. Been 2 years, I've been injured. I feel absolutely great." I think when you're playing 10 minutes of ice, and some nights it's 8 minutes or whatever, it's hard to get a rhythm to play the game of hockey. And all of a sudden, where you got Nick Bjugstad at nights playing 22 minutes, he found his rhythm. He found the confidence. The puck's on his stick. He's moving his feet. He's always into the games. And he just took off. And I think, for another team to get him, I was happy to make that phone call to move him on to Edmonton. They got a chance, obviously, to win a championship. So for him to kind of join that and be a part of that. And Nick, I don't know if you ever met him, but he is the greatest human being.
Oh, yes.
He is Minnesota nice. Yeah. He's just a great teammate. He's a pro's pro and a great family man.
Before you move on from Bjugstad and players like that.
No, I thought we were going to go to Minnesota.
But players like that. And they've moved on, but he's a free agent again in the summer. Yep. And I'm not even talking him specifically, but there's opportunities to bring players like Nick Bjugstad back to the program, or that kind of player is what you're looking for next year.
The free agency market will be open, and there's always, I think we leave a good taste in the player's mouth when they leave about, what's Arizona like, what the culture is like, what the expectations are like. And also, I think they love playing in the mullet. Mm-hmm. They love being a part of that. So it's a really good spot to, we've got the opportunity to land the free agents. And I think with the 2.5, tax laws, it's pretty good on the I think I know it's something behind the scenes, but the players love the taxes here and they love the sunshine, and it's a great place to recruit players to come. And I think the more players that we have that come in and have a good experience and then leave, they pass that along. I know the media in Canada, there's a lot of Coyotes haters out there.
Yes.
I think most of them are from Winnipeg, but or Quebec City. But the majority of haters out there on Twitter from the Yotes, they don't realize how good a place it is to play in Arizona and how much the players love it. It's a special place, and it's only getting better.
Yep. Well, you talked about all the draft picks you acquired in this trade deadline, but a couple of players did come over: Michael Kesselring, Mackey, and obviously Brett Ritchie. But what can those guys bring? What can Coyotes fans expect from those players?
Well, we targeted Kesselring. He had been on our radar for a while. He is a big body, and he's got a bomb of a shot. So he's got some really intriguing factors. We like the length of him. He is a big man, and he's got a great stick, and he defends well with the stick, and he can move a puck. And if you can't move a puck, it's very hard to play in the National Hockey League. So he's got a lot of the intangibles that we like. Obviously, he's going to make some strides, to become an everyday NHL player, but he's certainly got some really intriguing factors about him. And then Mackey, who played for us last night, again, another big man with length. He's got some jam. He can move a puck. He was the most highly recruited player coming out of college hockey a few years ago, and we never forgot that. And, he just ran into a situation where coach wasn't playing him in Calgary. We felt that he could come here and help out, and he could have a trial run. And so far, so good. He really looked good last night, moving that puck as a big man. So the bigger, the better on the backside. And,
you and I talked about. Can you explain that a little bit? Because obviously they got to be mobile in today's NHL, but you like other reasons about that length as well.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in length on the backside. It's just there's only so much room in the game of hockey, and if you can get somebody out there with a good stick, with hockey sense, that can move and add some, size and just, I think the other thing is when you eventually get into the 7-game series, if your players aren't big back there, they have a hard time boxing out. There's a lot of battles. The game changes when you get to the playoffs. It's a grittier, harder game, and you need some size. I think size fends off some injuries at times, and it wears other teams down in 7-game series. So, we're always trying to acquire a certain type of player and draft a certain type of player, the Maverick Lamoureux of the world that are 6'7". You can be too big, but we like the players back there with some length and a little bit of grit in them, and Mackey fits right into that for us.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the deals you didn't make. There was a lot of chatter about some players maybe moving on. Nick Schmaltz was one of those players. But you said the other day when we talked to you, a few hours after the deadline passed, you kept the core of this team intact intentionally. Let's talk about that. And then I also want to throw a hypothetical. You're going to love that. Maybe you don't even want to answer that. But how would you handle it? Yeah, well, let's start with that. With the intention of keeping the core together. What was your whole mindset there?
Yeah, I think when your team goes through the deadline, it's hard for them. They become attached to our players. And we have this thing where our coach does a great job of making them a team. And then all of a sudden, I come in there and move people around very quickly and gain assets. And, I felt it a little bit more this deadline that our players were, they were attached to their team, and I could feel that. It's interesting when that happens because you feel for our players when they're going through the process. But what we did on the backside of that is Ingrams of the world and Veg Malkas that we feel are good at what they do, and the Mosers and the Valimakis and Keller and Schmaltz and Krause and Michellis of the world and McBains of the world. The core has stayed together. We did not move those pieces. Those pieces are going to be back next year, and we're going to build off that, and we're going to take another step to be better. Whether we add young players in, the Coolies of the world, that might have a chance to come in, we'll see. But I tell you, our team will take another step forward for next year, and I believe because we kept those pieces together.
Hypothetical.
Yep.
The reality of the rebuild sets in sometimes for players. They realize this is a long haul. This is not short. This is the prime of a lot of these guys' careers. What if you had another player come to you and say, you know what, I'd really like the chance to compete for a playoff team over the next few years? What do you do in that situation? And I know it's specific to the player, but...
And that can happen again. That can happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
We have good relationships with our players. I think we have some honesty, some transparency. We're hoping that for us, they're going to buy into the fact that we're going to come back to be a better team next year. And I think there's some ways we can do that to take a step. I'm not talking about going and, okay, we're not going to be stupid about it. We're not going to go sign all these guys and be back right where we started. It has to happen naturally, but there are ways that we can use our picks to acquire, some players or enhance deals that will make us a better team, and that we can take another step forward next year and let it happen, as I call, naturally.
We saw, obviously, with the trade deadline, with a lot of guys on their way out, there were a ton of call-ups from Tucson. Tucson right now is in a position, they're currently in a playoff position in the AHL. They're, primed and hoping to make a playoff run. How do you approach it with Tucson, with call-ups, keeping in mind that that's their goal and not, decimating their team? Because, for a team to compete in a playoff situation, that helps players' development. So how do you balance that with Tucson?
It is a tough balance. It is one thing that you feel terrible at night when you go to sleep because you've taken from them, and you keep taking from them. At the same time, you also give young players opportunities that they might not see in other organizations. So it's great for that fact that we get to take looks at the Soderstroms of the world, the Kesselrings of the world, the Days and Dolphins of the world, and give them chances where normally maybe they wouldn't get the chance. But at the same time, you also deplete, your minor league team, and you're trying to develop players down there Ben McCartneys and the Smiths of the world. And when you get to a certain point where you take so much from them, you can't keep them at a level that you can compete. That's tough for them, and it doesn't enhance your prospects. So there's a balance there. I would say that we still are trying to find that balance. I think as the organization structurally with players coming in over the next few years, we'll have some more stability, and that's what we're looking to create with the rebuild. You're kind of all over the place because you're selling assets. We're looking to become have more stability in our organization for the coming years.
All right, well, more to get to. I've seen a ton of questions come through the chat, so keep asking. We can only pick a few, so if your question doesn't get answered, I apologize. A few of them we've already answered.
It's Leah's fault. She's the one deciding. So
as we've gone along, we've answered a few already. But before we move on, I just want to tell everybody about more furniture. Obviously, I just moved. I'm still buying furniture. It's crazy how long everything takes, but thankfully for me, I got more furniture at my disposal. They have amazing white glove delivery, so I don't have to worry about my furniture getting delivered and being broken. It could just be set up for me, especially with this busy stretch of games. I'm busy, so I need that. So thank goodness for more. They really helped me a lot with this move. And you can save big on the best furniture in the Valley when you head to morefurniture.com. That's MOR furniture.com. And right after we finish our show, we got lunch waiting for us.
We do? See, but do I have to put an order in? Because usually I forget.
You do not,
so
because the Spaghetti Shack came with a nice order of spaghetti, meatballs, garlic bread. Yep. We love Spaghetti Shack.
Bill timed that just right.
And it's an awesome business too, because they're community focused. Their to-go pasta concept started right here in Tempe, Arizona, by 5 lifelong friends, and they are currently serving Tempe and Queen Creek, hoping to come to your neighborhood soon. So check out Spaghetti Shack. Like I said, ASU alum owned and operated. So pretty cool. Fantastic. Pretty cool business. All right. Should we take a look in the chat?
Yeah, why don't we take a look in the chat?
So let's see what we got. Let's see what we got going in the chat. There's a ton.
Wrap up.
Okay, this one I was trying to read and get ahead of it. So here's a fun one from Tim. What color suits we wearing this year in Nashville? Need to give my tailor a heads up.
I would say there's going to be some maroon in there.
Oh,
okay. Wow.
An insider.
Some maroon in there.
Tim, there you go.
There was a question, I think, can we scroll down? There was one from Julia, Sean, that I want to read. There's so many. Okay, there it is. So if the Coyotes don't get an elite player at this draft, so top 3, I mean, you can find elite players anywhere, but if the Coyotes don't get a top 3 pick, what's the plan? Is the rebuild just extended?
Well, you want to obviously try and get in the top 3 if we can. Obviously, that would be, it'd be great if we're picking there. I've always had the philosophy at the draft where, there's no excuses. So, there's no crying. There's, if you've got to find a player, and that's all, and if you think about my time when I was with the Blues, the highest I ever got to pick as a leader was 20. Jarmo Kekalainen, who I love, was my boss, who's the Columbus Blue Jackets team. I mean, he picked at 1. He picked, Peter Angelo, I think, at 5. He got, he was all over. And I got the highest I ever got to pick was at 20. But the philosophy is that there's no excuses. We've got to find players. Sometimes you get the old Jack Eichel, Connor McDavid, where the GM on the other side was Tim Murray there in Buffalo. You could see, he was like, he was disappointed or whatever that he didn't get McDavid. We don't have that opportunity to get disappointed here. We've got to get to work, and there's no excuses. It's a lottery. There's nothing you can do if it doesn't fall your way. You've got to move on, and you've got to find players that can go into your rebuild. And it's not a one-man show. It's a team, and you got to draft a team.
Yep. We have another question from Chris that I like this one. How much or difficult is it to turn off your scouting brain to transition to GM? Do you still do the final steps of evaluation, or do you defer to your head of scouting?
Ooh, good question. Part of being a GM is having the ability to evaluate. So you listen to for example, if we're going to go sign a college free agent tomorrow, you listen to your scouts. That's your main thing. You read as much as you can about the reports. You go through the analytical people. They would touch base with your, if let's say he's a defenseman, you'll give some tape to one of your coaches, get some feedback from him, go to your development staff, get some feedback from him. And then at the end of the day, you've got to sit down and watch. So it's just, when you're a GM, it's more about compiling the information, making everybody a part of the decision. And at the end of the day, everybody gets 1 vote and I get 10. So yeah. you still use your evaluation, but you have to listen to your people. That's what they're doing. If you're not listening to your people, I mean, you're not out at the rinks every day, and I think with a young staff that we've worked together now for a few more years, you get more trust as time goes along, and that happens. And like this guy's had great success drafting people or signing free agents from and he's pounding the table. You got to listen to him, and you got to listen to your people. You cannot, as a GM, think that you're going to do everything. There's just not enough time in the day.
Yep. Great questions in the chat, by the way. Yeah. Thanks for asking. We'll do one more for right now. We might revisit them at the end. But I want to ask Mark's question about McBain. Is there an update on where he fits in, I guess, with the future of this team? And by the way, lots of commentary that you and he kind of look alike.
Yeah.
We were talking about that last night.
When he first showed up.
There's a picture that my wife dug up from when I was like 19 or whatever, and we look identical.
Wow.
That's the big joke with his agent. Me all the time. He calls me Jack's father. We did the press conference, and I guess Jack's dad said something to do with the mom. Said, wow, they do look very.
But where does he fit in with the future of this team?
Oh, he's had a good year. He's had a really, really good year, and you watch, and it's interesting watching the rookies in the NHL because they go up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's a grind, It's just they're not used to playing at the highest level every night that they can possibly squeeze out of their body. And he's done a great job. He's exactly the player that we thought he was when we gave up that second round. And we still feel like he's got some more growth. And he's part of our, bang and crash and physical. Yeah. He fits into that identity of the Coyotes. And you've seen some games where he goes out there, he runs over somebody in Chicago there, and he's got a fight tenority, and he does that. And he's a first-year guy, and he's put up some good points, and he's found his game. We're going to do everything we can to sign him. I don't see that being a problem. I hope his agent's not listening because he's got Pat Morris, one of the best agents in the game, and he'll be using all my words that I just said against me. He'll play this video actually when we're negotiating. Yeah.
But this brings up an interesting question about Jack McBain. And you go to the game last night against the New Jersey Devils, and the Coyotes played hard, but they're down by 1 late. Yeah. And I think we understand the assignment here at PHNX. As Coyote followers and fans, we want this team to have the best opportunity to get the highest draft pick as possible. We get what the rebuild's about. We understand it. We want this team to be competitive, but maybe not win every game. Having said that, from the GM booth, your mission is similar to that. You're looking for the best assets you can get. Jack McBain scores a goal with 2 minutes to go of the game to tie one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. What's the immediate reaction in the GM booth? What is that emotion like for you?
It's pretty good. I mean, I cheer for our group. I mean, we're at the point in the rebuild where you just don't want to get into that you're so negative and you're cheering against your team, and that's not me. I don't know if Craig has to deal with me on a daily basis, but I'm a pretty happy guy. I believe in people, and I see the good in our team and our coaching staff and what we're doing with the process. So it is where it is, and. My job is to build, and off the ice, and and let them play on the ice. And if so be it, if they win, they do. I'm not getting into the thing where we're going to be that team that cheers against our own players and that kind of stuff. So you've got to approach it with the right mindset, and you cheer for the success of your players and your team. And it is what it is. Where it lies is where it will lie. And if you're negative and you kind of go the other way, and it's just you. I'm not that type of person, and don't want to go down that road.
With that in mind, what are your expectations for these final 19 games?
Well, I had a chat with a few of the
20.
I
don't know. Sorry.
I think it's 19.
It is good.
It's 19.
My math is right for once.
We've worked hard on building our culture. We've worked hard on making sure our players come to the rink and compete every night and compete for each other as a team. We've worked extremely hard on the skill part, the eating part, how we approach, the load management, the sports science, everything that we've done. We're going to continue with that process, and we expect our players to fight like Coyotes right down to the end. And that's what we ask of our players. And because whatever happens after that, we got to come back to the ice with a lot of guys that are coming back, and they get it, and they understand what's expected of them down the stretch.
Okay, last one, just to put a bow on this. Last one for me, anyway.
Yep.
What do you want fans to know about the future of this franchise from your perspective?
The future's bright. I think, probably for the first time maybe in franchise history, as far as the draft picks, all the way to 2026, there is a lot of assets that can be used in a lot of different ways to give this franchise more power than probably the majority of, I'd say 90% of all other NHL teams. We've got a chance to make a huge step here. And we've done that by acquiring the assets. They're in the bank. They're there. It's not like they're there. That part of it is set up, and now it's a chance for the organization to take a step in the right direction to move forward with the draft picks. You look at, I think we were rated by 2 publications the other day with the #1 draft pick in the NHL, and that's Logan Cooley. And, he's got a good chance to come here at some point in time and be have huge, massive impact for this organization, along with the Connor Geekies and the Lamoureux of the world. And, in a short period of time, whether it's McBains or the Vejmelkas of the world or the Mosers, we've added, some good assets to this organization. Cap-wise, we're probably in the best shape of any NHL team out there. And if we can just let it grow naturally and just keep adding and getting better and making smart money decisions, and we can get there. Because the other aspect of it is, as you build, not only with players, but you have to be smart with the contracts. As soon as you get to the point that you don't balance your team properly and you overpay for somebody, it has huge amount of impact on your club. And you look at some of the clubs out there, they can't find balance and they just keep, faltering and going. So building is one that we're in great shape. We've got to do a great job with the contracts coming up and down the stretch. And that'll be the next part of the next phase that we go through. But the organization for us and the fans should know it is a bright future for the Coyotes.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, there's a ton of home games left this season. We've seen how competitive this team can be. Bright future ahead. So if you want to get out to some of those games, I recommend checking out the Game Time app. Save up to 60% on tickets when you buy them last minute. We've all used Game Time. It's super easy to use. You can also buy parking passes on there. It just makes it all easier, all in one. So the best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in our description. And then we always love feedback. So let us know what events, it's not just sporting events, concerts too, what events you use Game Time to get your tickets to, because we've heard nothing but great feedback from the people who have tried Game Time. And maybe hit up Circle K on your way to the game. We got the snack cart in studio. We're so excited to be partnered with Circle K. You had the orange slices the other day. I've had multiple bags of salt and vinegar chips. Just anything you need, it's at Circle K. We love it. And we're so excited to partner with them. And to kick things off, we've teamed up for an amazing giveaway opportunity. Text PHNX to 31310 for an opportunity to win a $500 gas card. So that's 31310. Text PHNX to that number for an opportunity to win a $500 gas card. See our show notes for more details. Anything else you guys want to?
We got a super chat. We better get to.
Yeah, we do. We have 2 super chats actually. So
people giving us money.
Yeah, so we'll start with John, I guess. And this is a question about the cap situation. Is if the NHL and NHLPA are upset about weaponizing cap, isn't the alternative that wealthy teams wouldn't be able to make deadline moves?
The CBA is up in a few years, so I think there'll be a lot of negotiations and there'll be a lot of talk about the LTIR. And I probably foresee maybe some changes in that a little bit. Some people have talked about when it comes to the trade deadline, and this is talked about a little. I was reading an article about it where they're talking about, okay, well, you can add as much money as you want to your team at the deadline. There's no cap. It goes away. But the cap comes back in when you put your roster together on the ice. It has to be under a certain amount. So you can have all the players you want stockpiled, but when the game starts, this is you have to figure it out and get get your cap down. I like that idea. I don't know if it'll go through. There's probably more to it, but that makes a fairness that people aren't using, other ways to put $106 million of players on the ice.
Yeah,
you can have 106 million. You just
can't put them on the ice.
You can't put them on the ice.
Right. I'm curious where this goes because I've heard a lot of propositions. Like there's people talking about the exception to, or a luxury tax or a franchise player, so that you can exceed the cap on the other end of it.
I think there's something like that coming our way. The NHL has done a great job at making the game one of the best games with the obstruction calls, the overtime, the shootouts. And it keeps getting better and faster. And, they also do a good job behind the scenes of trying to make sure that the league is a competitive and fair league.
One more super chat. This one's from Jordan. Jordan asked, how much easier will your job be if the Tempe voters approve the TED on May 16th?
Ooh, that's a great question. I get excited when I think about the possibilities of having that rink in Tempe. It would be a game changer for this organization. Might be the biggest thing that's ever happened to this organization because of the fact that you can put 2 practice rinks underneath with one of the most, the way it's been drawn up, looks like one of the most beautiful rinks in the NHL. You put it in a town that's attractive to players, the condo living, the no traffic, the beautiful entertainment district that they have down there. Just the vibe at Tempe is so good. You're 10 minutes from the airport. You're 10 minutes from where we fly out, as far as a team. Yeah. There's no traffic for the players. You got sunshine down there. You got good taxes. It's a home run for us as an organization. It would give us such a better way, I guess, to win the recruiting wars. Just with other teams, when you're looking at top end talent and it's even of what you're offering, now you've got the taxes, the sunshine, we can become what Tampa is to the NHL now.
Yeah, very true. Well, Bill, we can't thank you enough for setting aside some time after a very busy week, when you could be unwinding. So we appreciate you coming in, and everybody here in the chat. If we didn't answer your question, sorry, there was amazing questions, by the way. We could have done an entire episode just of questions from the chat. But everyone here, we appreciate you. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, PHNX Sports, and subscribe to PHNX Coyotes wherever you get your audio podcasts as well. You can follow us on Twitter at @SPetersHockey, at Leah Merrill, at Craig S. Morgan, at Sean_DePaz. You can follow the show at PHNX_Coyotes. Follow PHNX Sports across all social platforms. Become a diehard at gophnx.com. And we will be back tomorrow for our post-game show. But until then, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.